Listen up. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this podcast belong solely to the podcast participants, and not to any participant's employer, organization, committee, or other group or individual. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. You know, for fun. So lighten up and enjoy. Oh, stomping Jen.
I don't know.
Here we are. You do know. You're sitting right here. Of course you know.
Okay.
On this episode,
yes,
we are going to be talking about coffee.
I love coffee.
Coffee roasting.
I need coffee right now.
Coffee roasting.
Yeah.
With Andrea and Tim Monson from Monsoon Coffee Roasters. And I'm giving myself really one of these for saying all of that without tripping over it.
Cool.
Yeah. They are operating an amazing coffee roastery in a town near ours, Springfield, Massachusetts.
I don't know if you could say it's a town.
It's not a town?
It's pretty much a city.
Right, everything's a town to me.
All right.
That's the kind of person I am.
All right. Well, let's get to it.
All right. Okay, here we go.
The Soft Serve Podcast.
Creamy, delicious ideas without the creepy truck. All right, Stomping Jen.
Yes.
Here we are. We said that already, didn't we?
I know. I feel like I'm having deja vu, like all over again.
Yeah, we're going to talk coffee. This is going to be a coffee talk episode. And we're here with Andrea and Tim Monson from Monsoon Coffee Roasters. So let's say hi to Andrea and Tim. Hello, Andrea and Tim.
Hey. What's happening?
Thank you for coming on to talk to us. And I really appreciate it because I understand you are doing this after an escaped dog incident. So I appreciate you working some time in to chat with us about your business and what you're doing with all this coffee down there in Springfield, Mass. So I want to start off. I usually do a not so great job of introducing people. I leave out important things.
So you let them introduce themselves.
So we're going to give you an opportunity just to tell us anything you want to about yourselves that I may have missed.
Man, you want to take that?
Gosh. Okay. Andrea, I am Tim's wife. He is the talent. He is the coffee roaster, and I do the marketing and market research and social media aspect. And yeah, Tim.
Yeah. Together we make Monsoon, along with a small team of some of our friends, and we make really cool coffee for people in our own community. That's kind of what we're focused on.
Yep, and that community is Springfield, Massachusetts, right? That's a large metropolitan type city in Western Massachusetts, right? Stompy Jen?
It's not a town.
Third largest city, I think, in Mass.
Yeah, third largest city, but a city without any coffee producers at all.
Yeah.
So we stepped in to fill that gap.
Cool.
And we love it. We found our home.
Yep, and how did you come to open up Monsoon Coffee Roastery? Tell us about that.
So this started when we were pregnant with our daughter, and I was just really
7 years ago.
Yeah, 7 years ago. I was just really frustrated going to work every day and just kind of ended up with a paycheck that I wasn't happy about, mainly just because it was from somebody else and it was for somebody else's dreams. And so I came home one day and I was like, listen, we got to find a way to make a way for ourselves and make a way for our future and to stop working for other people's dreams and start figuring out our own. And that's how it got birthed.
That sounds like a scary thing to do.
It was terrifying.
Yeah.
as someone, I was in graduate school. Tim was finishing his bachelor's, and I'm like, oh my God, who did I marry? He doesn't want to have a job.
No, she's stuck. Yeah, yeah. I quit my job. I had a job working in risk management, and I left that and started working for a brewery. And then I hurt my shoulder and had to quit that. So I started working for like a small lunch restaurant under the table right before we are gonna have our daughter. But all that time I was roasting coffee, and I just had a hunch that could be a good way for us.
Where did you get the name Monsoon Coffee Roastery? How'd you settle on that? Is it connected to your actual last names?
Yeah. So our last name is spelled like the town.
Monson.
No relation. My dad is from California and somehow ended up here. And now there's a town named after us.
And a bank.
And a bank.
And they don't give us any money.
I'm waiting for the check. Yeah, that'd be nice.
Okay.
So whenever you put our name into like text message or Microsoft Word at the time, that was still a thing. It changes it to Monsoon. So we just kind of went with it.
That's awesome. It's a powerful name when I think about the weather system it's associated with. You know, it's just that name has a power to it. And it
for sure
it evokes wetness. Coffee is Stomping Jen. Coffee is wet.
I want a monsoon of coffee in my mouth.
Yes.
Yep.
So Andrea and Tim, so you got into this coffee business, and I'm assuming you love coffee, right?
Oh yeah.
What do you love about coffee? What is it about this substance that you love? This bean, this substance. What do you like about it?
I love the reactions that happen during the process of roasting. It's a really unique experience that changes from coffee to coffee. And it's something that most people don't actually get to partake in all the time. You know, everybody gets to drink coffee. But the actual process of roasting itself is quite magical, and smells beautiful. And it's
very creative too. You can take it wherever you want.
Yeah. And I do have some questions for you about the process. And we'll get to that. I kind of wanted to talk to you about the 3 core beliefs that you outline on your Monsoon Coffee Roastery website, which I suggest people listening to this go check out. It's a great website. I spent some time looking at it. The first one there was finding sustainable and environmentally friendly solutions to produce coffee that has less of a carbon footprint and working towards being zero waste. Can you tell us a little bit about what that means to you as people who are procuring and making coffee?
Yes, I think it's just we put it into our core values that we need to find better ways to operate business and to create revenue. You know, there's easier ways and there's harder ways, and there's ways that are better for the earth and there's ways that are worse. And sometimes it's a little bit harder to do things in a way that doesn't hurt the earth. But if you work it into the way you set your business up and the way you build your business, then it makes it easier to not compromise. So we set that up in our goals first and foremost because we just feel like we have a responsibility for us as humans to do our part in everything we do. You know, we can't do everything, but we can do our part. And so that's, you know, part of our core beliefs.
Yeah, I love that. We're all living here on this earth, and we want to keep drinking this coffee, right? It's true. And we've talked to a lot of farmers on our podcast, and one of the things that I've taken from them is that large industrial scale producers do create a lot of damage and waste. And is that the same in the coffee industry?
I mean, yes and no.
It depends on what kind of farm you have.
There's more of an impact right now from things like global warming, and from a lack of crop diversity than anything else in the coffee industry.
If anything, like coffee is actually endangered, right? So there there may come a time where we actually won't have any coffee plants to produce coffee from, so that's really scary.
There's a big fungus called coffee rust that nobody in the industry has really found a solution for to help ward it off. So it's just overtaking plants in many different countries.
Yeah. So once the coffee rust settles in, that's it. Your plants are dead. And
Wow.
The thing with coffee is it takes 14 years from planting to harvesting to actually get a coffee plant to be, to produce what you need. So, it takes a long time to get a plant to be, healthy and producing. And once the coffee plant gets rust, that's it. It's dead. And, we work with small coffee farms. We work with co-ops. So it's usually a lot of different farmers coming together in a region and pooling their crops together. And so that's what allows us to get really, really delicious specialty coffee that you just can't get at Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks because it's not scalable, right? They can't afford to just sell that coffee. So you get like these really great notes of caramel and toffee and pineapple and some of the coffee farms, they grow plantains with it, or they grow other kinds of plants that actually add to the ecosystem of the dirt and of the soil. And so you get like these coffees that have different notes and different flavors because of the other plants that they're grown along with, in order to make it a sustainable ecosystem. So,
that is fascinating.
It is.
And I had no idea that the plant had such a long life cycle, like 14 years. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Even the crop cycle is long. It's grown in regions closer to the equator, but it still has a 10-month crop cycle. So it takes basically go from seed to harvest in 10 months and then another month for processing before it even gets sent out of the country.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So it's really important that for us that we find, really good coffees and coffees that are sourced from people that are doing better practices. Because they spend all the time with it. We get the coffee and I spend 15 minutes roasting it, after we've done our research and our testing on it. And in production, it's 15 minutes a batch at most. Usually a little bit less. So, our job is really to pass along the hard work that the farmers have done creating coffee.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Another of your core values is building social capital among our community and with other businesses, and that one I really liked. What does that mean to you?
So it's something we found along the way that it's a lot more fun to be in business and to work with other people than to try to just make it on our own. We've worked really hard to create really good coffees and create really great partnerships with the coffees we do use. But I'm not a baker. So like in our espresso bar, we have a rotating list of bakers that we have pastries coming through every week. Some of those people buy our coffee, some of them don't. Working with other businesses in the area to just help pump whatever they're doing or work with them for whatever projects they want to do. And finding ways to create value in our community as a whole and keep the life cycle of a dollar, just help extend that a little bit further. We started our provisions program in COVID to help some of the vendors that we used to work with at farmers markets
continue to sell their products.
To be able to, because none of us were sure what a farmer's market would look like in the spring of last year. And, so we created an online platform to help facilitate some of that stuff. And it's literally like something we don't make much money on, but we're working with a whole bunch of other businesses and it's really great.
I'm a strong believer in cross-collaborative projects.
It's the a rising tide lifts all boats concept, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, there's enough money in the market for everybody, and the dollar goes further if we work together instead of trying to compete. So,
exactly.
And I just want to,
no-brainer.
and I just want to mention to people again, Tim mentioned the Monsoon provisions. They have a tab on you have a tab on your website where you can go on and order like local products and arrange to get them picked up safely and under the current pandemic type of situation. So people go check that out.
Yep.
You can see a whole bunch of different types of products on there. And the last core value, bringing high quality, freshly roasted coffee to local residents, businesses, and partners. I love that because I love high quality coffee. I do. We've purchased your coffee. I love it.
Yep.
It's true. Good coffee.
It's true.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything more you want to say about that last core value? I mean, it does speak for itself.
Yeah, that's basically what we do every day.
That's the mission.
I think my favorite illustration of that is having someone order a decaf coffee, handing them the decaf coffee, and then handing it back to me and saying, "You've given me regular by accident."
That's
and
awesome.
Then I'm like, "Nope, I gave you decaf, but it's just really good coffee."
Do you decaffeinate the beans there at your location?
No, we work with a farm that specializes in providing specialty decaf coffee. So so most decaf coffees will be old coffees that never really sold. And so they ship them off to either Canada and Norway? Greenland.
Yep.
To get decaffeinated through a chemical process. Then they get shipped back to the country of origin, and then they try to sell it as decaf coffee. This farm grows specialty coffee, decaffeinates them through a sugar cane water process, and ships them out fresh as specialty decaf coffee. So we love working with this farm. It's they're in Colombia. It's a sweet coffee. So I had it this afternoon as a decaf because it'll be 4:00 in the afternoon and I still want a latte, but I don't want to stay up all night. So I'll have the decaf coffee. It's so good. It just the sweetness of the bean adds to the sweetness of the milk that you're using. And I love maple oat lattes. That's my go-to. So a decaf maple oat latte, it's just it's amazing.
You're selling me on it. We haven't tried your decaf coffee yet. I think I have to, just because as a personal preference, it's not something I would ever consider. But now I think now I think I need to. We're gonna have to try that.
It's all the flavor, none of the guilt.
Yeah. So you picked for your location Springfield, Massachusetts, this city. Does this location in some way have any significance? Did you pick that location for a reason? Does it align with your core values in a particular way? Like, did you say we want to be here?
No,
it kind of chose us.
It chose us.
Yeah.
We did everything in our power to leave Springfield, Massachusetts. Everything.
Totally.
Went to Florida. We went to Philadelphia, all places. Yeah. And it felt almost like a force that was pulling us back. It was like a rubber band, like, come back here. And we were just like, all right, let's just, Tim did his good due diligence of doing research around the area, and there was just no real coffee producers for 20 miles within, 20 miles radius, right?
So we realized the market opportunity, and we settled in for it, and it's been great.
Yeah, we dove into Springfield, and Springfield as a city, the people were just so proud to have a product that was from Springfield.
Yeah,
that they really made it easy for us to kind of get the word around, because they really just did it themselves. People just told people and told people and told people, and that really helped us.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So I want to switch back to talking about coffee a little bit more, about the plant. Where is this plant grown? It's grown up in the mountains, right? And that's part of the issue. Yeah, it's part of the issue, right? It has a really special ecosystem it needs. Can you talk a little bit more about where it's grown for us?
Yeah, so it's mostly grown along the equator. So you can find it all around the globe, but mostly around the equator. And the specialty coffee like we buy is all located usually
1,600 meters above.
Yeah, anywhere anywhere above 1,000 meters, sometimes a little bit lower for things in like Brazil, or like Vietnam or Asia. But for the most part, it's really, really high grown for the more specialty grade coffees. It needs a very specific climate that is pretty constant all year, and coffee likes volcanic soils and things that are very carbon rich.
And I noticed on a lot of your packaging and other coffee packages I've seen, they are very, they make a point to put the elevation that the coffee was grown at on there. Is there anything specific about elevation that translates into like the taste of the coffee or the quality of the coffee? Anything?
Again, it has a lot to do with the density of the bean. So if you were to look at a coffee bean under a microscope, it would look more like a sponge, almost like a sponge that's dried and hard. So there's tons of holes running through it. It's very porous, and that porousness makes it susceptible to absorbing whatever's in the air around it. So where it's stored can affect it, how it's transported can affect it, and how it's contained, in the sack itself can actually affect it. And so the elevation is going to change kind of that density and its willingness to kind of accept those things a little bit. I don't think it has like the biggest factor on taste, but some people really want to know like what their elevation was and the growing conditions and whether it was shade grown or not, or whether it's grown in volcanic soil or grown.
Those are like the hot topic words, but like for example, your Robusta beans, right, which are like the high caffeine. So like Bustelo, right? Bustelo coffee. That's a Robusta bean. That's typically like a low grade bean. It's grown in low altitude. So we tried to secure a Robusta bean that's actually high altitude specialty grade coffee. So these farmers have taken the time to transplant that plant from altitude higher every year to get higher and higher and higher. And so the air quality changes the way that the plant obviously grows and thrives. And so the Robusta bean has gone from like a lower tier quality bean to a really high specialty bean. You see like the Death Wish coffees. Those are all mostly, they're half Arabica, half Robusta, but they're really trying to secure a bean that just has a better taste, better flavor than your kind of bitter Bustelo coffee.
I think we got a bag of your Robusto coffee.
Did we?
Yeah, we did, and it's intense. Yeah, it's intense.
Yeah, I don't drink it. It makes you sweat if you're not.
And I drink a lot of coffee, so and that was challenging for me.
Yeah.
So so these beans, okay, they're these plants, they're growing up there on the mountain, and how are they picked? Are they picked by hand? Do people come through with bags and pick them? Yeah,
it's actually a pretty grueling process.
Super late, because usually it's grown on like mountainsides, right? So it's not like you're walking through a flat field.
It's pretty hard.
You're literally hiking on steep hillsides and picking these shrubs. They look like cherries being grown, like almost like the way grapes are.
But kind of like blueberries, right? Like blueberry bushes, a little bit bigger.
Yep.
It's not easy, like especially those specialty farms where they're small co-ops. These are farmers who are picking them themselves and harvesting themselves. Or sometimes sun-dried, sometimes not. But it's not easy. That's why it's a little bit more expensive, and it wouldn't be scalable for like a Dunkin' Donuts or a Starbucks even, because it's not affordable to.
There are bigger farms, like some of the bigger commodity farms that will use like machines that can harvest, but it's harvesting everything at once, whereas like not every cherry on the branch is going to be ready at the same time. So when they're picked by hand, it allows the workers to focus on only the ripe beans, and that way you get a more consistent crop yield. and you can go back and pick the ones that haven't ripened later when they do. So it's a lot like a lot of other things.
It's handmade coffee, right? It's
Yeah.
like it just takes a lot more time and more care.
After it's picked off the branch, it has to be milled. So like the inside the fruit is 2 seeds, and those seeds are the coffee beans. So there's 2 of them in each little cherry.
Do they get milled? Do they get milled at the source of picking?
Most of the time, yeah. So when we work with single owner farmers, or cooperatives, usually those will have milling right on site. There's other like unions and regional operatives, like in places like Indonesia, there isn't really on-site farm mills. Everything is by region. So you bring your crop down to the regional mill, and they process it and grade it for you for export. So it really depends on the country and even down to the sub-region in the country sometimes.
How do you find these farms? Like, did you go travel down to the equator? And
no, I wish.
One day,
that's the next step.
That's the funnest part of the job, I think, for some people. So we work with brokers, and basically their job is to send people around the world all year round and form relationships with these, mill processors and farmers and people in town selling coffee. And
there's some companies, brokerage companies, who really invest in these farmers, right? So they'll find a co-op that's like doing everything, growing sustainable coffee. Some are rainforest grade coffee farms, and they'll invest in their farm. They'll get them better equipment. They'll get them funding for, extra labor or something. And so we like working with the brokers because we know that they're finding farms that are sustainable, which kind of feed into our own model, but also that the work and labor is fair, right? So there's a lot of, there's even like slavery within like some farms, some coffee farms like in South America. So you have to be really careful when you're working with a broker, especially if you're looking at certain farms, to make sure that that's not one of the processes, right? So it's on us to do our due diligence to make sure that the coffee that we're bringing to people is a fair coffee in all respects, right?
Yeah. And so you get the coffee. It comes to you in these big burlap sacks, right? And it's just like Tim described. It's full of the raw seeds,
the green
beans. So then you roast them, right? You do that on site where your roastery is.
Yes, indeed.
So do you have, this may be the stupidest question I ask, do you have like a roasting philosophy or a preferred approach to roasting? Is there such a thing as a roasting philosophy?
We call it profiling.
Tell us about that.
And so I have a set of, I have like a handful of parameters that we'll use when we're roasting or even trying to test out what coffees we would like to see if would work. So it'll start with, we'll get samples in. So when we're looking at a new region or new crops that are coming into port, we'll get 10 or 15 samples, and we'll roast all those little samples up, usually about maybe a quarter of a pound, a third of a pound at a time, in a few different profiles. So a couple different rates of rise, or sequences, to see what brings out the sugars or the acidity of it. What kind of a roast level is gonna bring out better taste profiles for the coffee itself. And then we'll cup them. I'll cup them without knowing what coffee is from where, so that I'm not biased by price or by origin. And we find the coffees we like and don't like, and then we go from there. Once I find a coffee I like, I'll find a roast style or a profile that I feel fits the bean the best, and then we'll put that into production.
And what does that roasting look like? How do you do it? Like, what is the actual process? Does it go in like an oven, or how do you do that?
So we have a fluid bed coffee roaster. So it's a lot different than what most coffee companies roasters look like. It's basically a giant, if you could picture like an old school air popcorn popper.
Yeah.
Where you kind of throw the kernels in the bottom and you plug it in and the hot air starts pumping out until it pops. It's a similar process to that. Basically, we throw a big load of beans into almost like a megaphone cone that's upside down, that's being pumped with hot air through it really fast. So it kind of lifts the beans up and sends them back down to the bottom, and keeps them in like a fluid rotation, even though they're not a fluid item.
What do you? Is there something you prefer about that method? Or is that what you just started with, or what is it about that method that you like?
So there's a couple things. Originally, I switched to it because I wanted to be able to roast coffee on 100% renewable energy, and electric roasting on a traditional drum style roaster is just not very accurate. It doesn't give you very much control in your parameters while you're roasting. Whereas this style had a lot more nuance to it. And it kind of allows you to bring out kind of more truer flavors in the coffee, because you're not, you don't have to depend on it grabbing its heat from a source that's solid. It's grabbing its heat source is being cooked through the air. And then also I can make tiny little changes. I can turn my burners off and turn them right back on instantly. If I change the airflow just a little bit, I can change my rate of rise on my temperature and how fast I'm cooking it. And so it just gives more control that also allows us to have more clarity.
Is the roasting process one where you have to be paying attention from the minute you flip that switch to the minute you turn it off? It's not like, putting
set it and forget.
It's not set it and forget it. It's not like a Ron Popeil type of situation.
They there are some really cool roasting machines that you can get now. Oh my goodness, my dog is
so, folks, we're watching a dog leap onto Tim.
Slobber all over.
Yep.
I know, he's a good dog. So they do make some roasters now that you can automate your profiles. So basically, like, once I find that profile, I can just tell the machine to do it every time. I do everything we do is by hand. So yeah, I have to pay attention from the second that we drop a batch into the second it cools down. We can miss a mark by 30 seconds and it can ruin an entire batch of coffee. So it is something where it takes a lot of discipline and a lot of practice to be able to tell what you're doing and what changes you make, how they affect each step in your roast. And yeah, it's kind of something you have to babysit as you move along.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we talked about, you sell these Robusto beans, you sell the decaf beans. What other types of beans do you sell at Monsoon Coffee Roastery?
So we sell a core line of 6 coffees, and then we do a different limited release every 4 to 5 weeks or so. So right now, we have a limited release called Frosty Balls, which is actually a blend. Usually it's a single origin, but this is a blend that we do every year because everybody freaking loves it. Frosty Balls is a blend from like Congo and Honduras. It's super good, really creamy.
Chocolatey.
I have to get some of those.
Frosty Balls?
Yes. I have to get down there. Do you have a personal favorite?
Andrea says Soul Rave. I'm going to say Liquid Sunshine. Which are polar opposites. Soul Rave is our dark roast. That's a blend from Brazil and Guatemala. It's just a big old chocolate bomb. Always good on espresso. Always good on drip coffee. It's just a really good go-to. I love Liquid Sunshine. The current line is from Zambia. And it's a really nice natural process coffee. Which is a little bit of a different processing method when the coffee gets picked. Mm-hmm. So it allows for a little bit more like fruity and sugary flavors to come out. And it's a little bit more enjoyed as like a drip coffee or with a Chemex.
What does natural process mean? I saw that on your website a bunch, and you've mentioned it a couple times. Could you just tell us what that means?
Sure, yeah. So there's a few general methods for processing. Take him out real quick. He's going nuts. So there's a few different general methods for processing coffee after it's picked at harvest. So after getting milled, the coffee needs to dry and the moisture content needs to be brought down to generally roughly around 13%, give or take.
Yep.
A couple. And so depending on the country and depending on who's running the farm, they'll determine the different methods for processing. A lot of Central American and South American countries will do a washed process where they'll wash everything off the bean so it's nice and clean before it gets laid out on beds to dry. The natural process coffees happen a lot more in African countries. There's not as much as to free running water. So they'll take the coffee, they'll mill it, and instead of washing it, all the mucilage and pulp from the fruit away, they'll leave it sticking to the bean and throw that out to dry, and it causes a little bit more of a fermentation process. There's a little bit more of the fruit and just that funk that it gives left on the bean.
I feel like that would give you a more.
Down.
I feel like that would give you a more flavorful coffee.
Yeah, so like it definitely does. So like in the Zambia, you can get some nice apricot notes out of it, just some really nice brighter fruitiness. Whereas like, you go a step up into organic panic, which is from Colombia. It's a really wonderful washed coffee. It's gonna be a little bit smoother, less pronounced fruity notes, and sometimes even a little more earthy. And that's just sometimes from the processing.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think I like the way this natural processing sounds, because I like things that have a slightly funk to them.
Yeah, you'd probably like wet hold coffees. So like stuff from Indonesia, Sumatra. I used to have one from Vietnam. Actually, I saw that come up on the import list. Where they'll hull it wet and then dry it, and it kind of gives a little bit more of a funk to it, that earthiness, pininess. It's super, not grungy, but yeah, definitely more earth tones, tobacco tones. That kind of a flavor profile.
All right, and you also have an espresso bar at Monsoon Roasters at your location. So you make coffee for people to drink.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite way to prepare coffee?
Oh man. So I'll say every day I drink 2 Americanos every day, 2 8-ounce Americanos. So I'll make a short triple shot and stretch it with a little bit less water than what we'd normally put in. So that's my go-to drink every day. But my favorite espresso drink to make is definitely a cortado. It's a really nice introduction to if you really want to get into espresso. So it's equal parts espresso and steamed milk. So you get a nice rich body of the coffee. You get a nice touch of milk, but it's nothing that's too overwhelming. And it's not watered down as much like a latte is.
Now, some people listening to this, I'm sure they've heard the word espresso. They may not know what that is. Can you talk a little bit about what that brewing process is when you're making espresso?
So espresso is coffee brewed hot under pressure. So we grind coffee really fine and we pack it into what we call a portafilter, which looks like a fancy little handle with a coffee, looks like a hockey puck of coffee in it. And then we put that in a machine that basically like just punches it with a whole bunch of pressure at once and hot water. And that extracts the coffee in about 30 seconds into a tiny little shot. So it's kind of just like condensing your energy down really fast.
Yeah, it is good. It has a sweetness to it.
Espresso,
it really brings out the sweetness in coffee.
Yeah.
Now, I have been drinking coffee for a long time. Stomping Jen,
Mm-hmm.
and I know the superior way to prepare and drink it. I'm
Okay.
ready to reveal it to
Okay.
our coffee experts here.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yes. Are you ready?
Sure.
The superior way to drink coffee and prepare it,
Yeah.
I've got those backwards,
Yeah.
is cold brew. Uh-oh. Tim is not reacting the way I expected.
Oh no, I love cold brew. I do. We make a lot of it. How do you make your cold brew?
So I bought this little thing, this Japanese cold brew maker thing.
Yep.
So it's like a glass carafe, and it has like a little stainless steel mesh thing in there. So I just grind up my coffee, I throw it in there, and I leave it in there for about 12 hours. I'm very impatient. I have to drink it quickly. And so then I pour it into a glass over ice, add some almond milk. That's the way to go for me. How do you make cold brew do you make it at Monsoon?
Yeah, so we make 30-gallon batches of cold brew. And we make it in-house. So we make that in the summer. We're making it just about 5 days. We're doing that just about 5 days a week. In the winter, not quite as much. But we'll have a good amount of people that drink cold brew. It's really good. It's a different extraction process because you're not using heat. And so some people say that it's easier on their stomachs or it's less acidic. From my testing, I've found that it does actually have a lower pH of just a little bit, usually by a tenth.
I found the flavor profiles to be way more complex with cold brew. Just, I don't know what it is. Like I think it depends on the bean, maybe. I don't know. They always taste a little more like chocolatey to me, or like I can always pick up notes in them I don't feel like I get out of hot coffee.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it's a different experience for sure. Yeah, it always, the chocolatey notes always seem to prevail in cold brew. But it's really cool what kind of fruity flavors you can pull out too when you start blending things.
I like nitro brew in the summer.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Nitro cold brew.
We actually figured out a way this last summer to brew nitro cold brew in 6 hours. Under pressure. So it's got nitrogen from the start of its brewing process all the way up into kegging. Yeah.
Now, does that impart a special quality to the finished product that you've noticed?
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, it aerates the coffee a little bit as it goes through. And I mean, the main reason we use nitrogen is that, like I said, we brew 30-gallon batches and then that goes straight into kegs. And so in order to displace the oxygen in the kegs as you're taking it out, we replace it with nitrogen. We don't, the other option that people do for beer is CO2. But unfortunately, CO2 bonds with water molecules. And then that can create carbonic acid, and that combined with the coffee tastes really bad. Whereas the nitrogen does not bond with the water molecules. So it sits in there separated, almost like oil and water would do in a glass. And that's how you get that cool cascade. And beyond that, I'm not actually sure of the chemistry of how it can change the taste.
That's interesting. I'm wondering if there is a mad science element at all to preparing coffee. Like, have you experimented with methods that just didn't work? Like you were trying to come up with something new?
Yeah. With the cold brew specifically, yeah. We have a brewing process that is definitely a little bit unconventional. But I think it makes our cold brew stand out a little bit more than other people's. And then there's definitely always going to be different ways to prepare coffee. I mean, you can look at the coffee competitions across the country and see baristas doing just absolutely nutso things and throwing crazy flavors together that you wouldn't expect. And that's one of the things I love about running the espresso bar is it takes the coffee and allows us to express a little bit more creativity in our flavors and palates. This weekend I made a reduction of fresh turmeric and ginger, and then we paired that with a little bit of brown sugar and Meyer lemon, and threw that in a latte called the Spicy Vicey. And I mean, it's absolutely delicious.
Jesus,
sweet, savory.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's all kinds of things that do go with coffee.
I need to get down there.
Sawtooth is like, we're going there.
Yeah.
Hey.
So yeah, we've got a little coffee roaster joining us. So we'll say hi. We'll say hi to them.
Coffee roastery Padawan.
Hi. Thank you for letting us borrow your parents. We appreciate it. So I have to think about how to say this delicately. Have you ever tried those beans that were eaten and pooped out by a cat?
I haven't tried those ones, but I've had beans that were eaten and pooped out by an elephant.
You got to help me here. You're a coffee expert. I do not understand this.
It's I mean, it's animals are one vessel because of how their body processes it. It's almost like they're milling it and starting the drying process all in one. There's actually a lot of farms now that are trying anaerobic processes in their processing before drying. So where they'll hold the beans in tanks of water with yeast to spark the fermentation before they even go into the drying phase. And I mean, that's kind of what the animals are doing. I don't know. It's not my cup of tea.
Did you like it? Did it taste strange in any way?
It tasted like coffee. It wasn't like super fresh. So it was hard to pick up a lot of nuances. And I think the guy was selling it for like something like $43 or $44 a pound.
Oh, geez.
I didn't buy one.
All right, so we're not going to be looking for that at Monsoon Roastery.
No.
I mean, it's a cool hype thing, but yeah, I probably won't. It probably won't be something we'll be carrying.
Okay. One thing I wanted to ask about, I was on your website recently, and you have some of the most vibrant, creative packaging I've ever seen. They're beautiful to look at. Mm-hmm. So I was just wondering if you could just tell us a little bit about your philosophy towards experimenting and being fun and creative with your products.
Oh, I wish Andrea was here right now. She's downstairs. So with the cans, we just launched those. So thank you so much for the compliment. I appreciate that.
Are there beans inside those cans? Because we were having a debate of whether it was liquid or beans.
Yeah, so it's hard because we started using that can shape for our cold brew in the summer. And we love the packaging so much. We were working through, what do we use for packaging to have a more sustainable solution? Because it felt so terrible. The bags we were using had to go in a landfill. And we were not okay with that. And so we went back and forth. We looked at compostable packaging. We looked at tin packaging. We looked at other bags. We looked at these, we went through so many different options. And then one day somebody sent me a video about aluminum and how it's one of the only things that's actually recyclable in the recycling chain that we have in the US right now. So it really changed the game for what we wanted to look at. Just based on that, I mean, we were like, wow, if I take this aluminum can, I recycle it, it becomes an aluminum can again in 6 weeks. And not only that, 99% of the material you recycled is reused again, and you only have to reintroduce 1% new material.
Yeah.
To me, it was an absolute slam dunk for packaging. And then, for the design, we started. We knew we wanted to work with Nate Duvall before he even decided we wanted to do new packaging. I think a couple months after we opened back in 2018, Nate had become one of our regular customers. And I didn't know who he was. Nate Duvall is, he designed our packaging and worked with us. He's a graphic designer that lives in the area. And he's done a lot of work for really cool bands like Dave Matthews and the Grateful Dead and all these really cool big names.
Okay.
And a couple months after, buying coffee, is like, listen, when you're ready to do your next iteration, I would love to help you out. Just because whenever I get a bag of coffee, I think about all the ways of what I could do with the bag.
Yeah, he sees color on a different level or something.
Yeah. So we were like, well, we want a package that is going to be loud and fun and just completely different to what the rest of the industry is doing, which is like boxy and square and very very in line. And we just wanted something that was going to express a little bit more of how we feel and what we want to look like.
Cool.
And so that's how we got there.
Right.
With all the polka dots and everything.
Yeah, we also want to tell people that Monsoon Roastery sells merchandise on their website, so you can get Monsoon Roastery branded shirts and hats and all sorts of things. Also accessories for brewing, right?
Right. We got our Chemex there.
Yeah, I need you to help me settle a debate real quick. So I have a friend of mine who are there children around? Can I say this?
No, you can say anything.
I have a friend who claims I'm a coffee douche because I use the Chemex, and he accuses me of having paid too much for it. He says my grandmother's Mr. Coffee does the same thing. Now, I'm outraged by this accusation my friend has made, and I'm wondering if you could weigh in as a coffee professional.
All right, so here's the deal. I mean, my grandma had a Chemex. All right.
Your grandma was awesome.
So, the Chemex has been around for more than 75 years. It's not a new device. It's very old technology. It's probably been around longer than the Mr. Coffee.
Yes, thank you.
But you're talking to a coffee roaster, so everybody's going to have a different level of what's your coffee snobbery, right?
Yeah.
For me, I'm going to wake up in the morning and make myself an espresso.
Yeah.
And that's the level I'm at, because this is what I do every day.
Yeah. I love the Chemex. I love it.
Heck yeah. I think the Chemex is great. Not everybody wants to put that kind of effort into their morning, and I get that. It's not easy.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate the expert opinion on that, and I will be rubbing that in my friend's his nose and that expert opinion. So, what's on the horizon for coffee? What do you think? What is
Monsoon?
I mean, I was a little for Monsoon, for coffee in general. I mean, I was horrified when Andrea mentioned that we could see the end of coffee if this global warming continues. But talk to us a little bit. Where is the future of coffee going? Products, the environment. What do you have to say about this?
I think people care about where their coffee comes from, because otherwise we won't have coffee one day. I know it's a grim reality, but it's honestly the truth. And that, I mean, it has to do with more than just coffee, but the amount of effort we're willing to put into where our stuff comes from is the amount that's going to get put back into where it came from. So, the coffee market, it could look better, but it could also look worse. There's still a lot of great coffees around, and I still keep seeing them popping up. So I'm hopeful that we'll keep seeing a lot more coffee, and that people that are consuming coffee will begin to understand the volatility of the market, both for price and for the crop itself.
Yeah.
And for Monsoon, we're going to keep doing awesome things, and we're going to keep roasting amazing coffees and making sure that, they come from great places and that everybody's getting what they deserve. We got some big plans in store for the year. We're doing some really big collaborations with a couple businesses, and that we can hopefully talk about soon. And things are looking cool. Things are looking up here at Monsoon.
Awesome.
We're excited for the end of a pandemic world.
Yeah, us too.
We all are.
Kind of just waiting around for that.
Before we let you go, anything you want to talk about? Anything specifically you want to plug? Anything you want to address that we may not have hit upon?
Man, I don't know. I mean, we talked about a lot of really cool stuff. I would say.
Can I just say I could have easily talked to you for 3 hours, and we're gonna have to do that in the future after the pandemic. I really want to just sit down with you and Andrea and just geek out on coffee. So.
Oh, I love doing that. I'm down for it. For it. I don't know. Yeah, I would say check us out online. Order some coffee so that you can make better coffee at home, or if you live near us, come and visit us and have a cup of coffee with us at our walk-up espresso bar.
Which
that's
is
what we're about.
Awesomely cool place.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All
it's a little cool destination.
Yeah.
One last question. I have to ask you this. I'm sorry. And you can answer this any way you'd like. We ask all of our guests this question. What have you experienced that you cannot explain?
Oh, God.
Can you say that one more time? You cut out.
Oh, sorry. What have you experienced that you cannot explain?
Ooh. So, hold on. Let me think for a second. That's a hard question to ask right here.
It's going to be a good one. I can feel it.
Man. I'm trying to think of a really different answer, but the only thing I can really think of, and this is going to be real out of left field for everybody else.
Okay.
But, I don't understand when you go on a spiritual journey of doing something like taking some mushrooms or something like
Sure.
that. I don't understand how it makes everything in your brain fall right outside of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It takes all the thoughts in my brain and just makes it all fall outside. So yeah, that's something I can't explain.
It.
Yeah.
Thank you. There are a lot of theories about that.
Yes.
We'll talk more about it on a future episode.
Yes.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Tim. We really appreciate it.
I know that's super out of left field.
Nope.
That's okay.
Crazy, but you know
we talked to a gentleman named Dave Ironman, who is a shamanic coach and acupuncture professional. And I asked him actually quite a lot of questions about plant medicine, including mushrooms and psilocybin. So check out that episode. That he had some insights into that, actually, I think. Because it's a topic I'm super interested in. So
yeah.
I am too. I've only been on an experience like that a couple times, but each time they've been so profound and so beautiful and very in different ways that I have such a respect for it.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's so misunderstood.
Yeah. And I'm going to close the loop by saying I think coffee is a plant medicine.
Yes,
because
true.
of what it does for people. And what I feel it has done for humanity. So, Tim,
definitely.
thank you, thank you and Andrea for your work in coffee and bringing us all these amazing coffee products and for turning your passion into something we can put in our bodies. Thank you.
For having us on. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So
it was a good time.
Yeah, really appreciate it. We hope we get you back, Stomping Giant.
Yep.
Anything else we want to say?
To our peoples, we love you.
Our fans, our listeners, thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening.
Please wear a mask.
Be safe. Get vaccinated.
All the stuff, right?
All the stuff.
All right. And finally, what do we say?
Bye now.
Okay. Bye now.
Good evening, my fellow Americans. America knows that this world of ours, ever growing smaller, must avoid becoming a community of dreadful fear and hate. Those who have freedom will understand also its heavy responsibility. That all who are insensitive to the needs of others will learn charity, and that the sources, scourges of poverty, disease, and ignorance will be made disappear from the earth. And that in the goodness of time, all peoples will come to live together in a peace guaranteed